Okay, hey guys, in this live stream I wanted to talk about the OMG9. It is an optional layout that was developed by the team that helps you use both the FM3 and the FM3 and the FC6 together at the same time to make things a little easier to get around, get to the settings you want, change presets, change scenes. With the default Footswitch layouts on the FM3, you can get to everything, but it requires you to use the master layout menu. Typically when you hold the middle switch, you'll jump to the master layout menu, and then you can choose to go to presets, and then you press the master layout menu again when you want to go to scenes, press it again when you want to go to effects and things like that. If you happen to have the FC6 as well, of course you can configure it to do whatever you want, but it's kind of nice to have them put together in such a way that it kind of takes out that requirement of the master layout menu, jumping to that every time you want to switch to something. So it's really cool, and I wanted to walk through installing it and a little bit on how to use it, and then how to adjust it if you need to put different effects on the effects layout or change any of the layouts and things like that. I think you could turn down just a little. Thanks. So let's just get started. This is the OMG9 guide that comes with the download. Very important that you open this PDF file up and give it a read. I'm going to go through it now, but make sure you read through it. It has a lot of information on how to use this. And if you just try to install it, try to install the OMG9 layout without reading this, you might be a little confused because it's different. It's not using well, I like to say it uses a little trick of the FM3 and the foot switches to make it work, and it's genius, really. But if you're not used to it, it might be confusing. So give this a read, but we're going to go through it right now. So this introduces the OMG9 here, but I already did that, so we're going to move on. So to install it, you have to make a couple of changes to the FM3 before you install the layout. It's kind of important. One of them is bank size, and if you change the bank size after you load the layouts, it might not work correctly. So make sure you do these couple of steps first. The first step, it says to go to Devices and change the FM3 to Startup on Layout 8. You can do that on the hardware as instructed here, but you can actually do it on Edit as well. So what you want to do is click Devices, and then for FM3, you want the Startup layout to be 8. So just click that and choose 8, okay? And then the Startup layout for FC1, you want to make that 1. So FM3 to 8 and FC1 to 1. This will help you when you turn on the device, and it'll get you ready to go with the OMG9 setup. The next thing you want to do, and this is the important one, you really need to do this before you install the layout files, is you need to change the bank size to 6. The reason for this is the FM3 defaults to a bank size of 3, which makes sense because there are only 3 switches on the unit itself. And if you want to use the FC6 to get 6 presets at a time, when I show you that, if it's set to 3, you won't see that. You'll see 2 rows of the same thing. So what you want to do is on the FM3 itself, this one you have to do from the FM3, you want to click the E knob, go to Setup. You want to hit Enter on FC controllers. And then you want to page all the way, almost all the way to the config page, like that. And you want to go down to the bank size, and I've already set it up to 6. This would say 3 if you're at default settings, but just change it to 6 first before you install anything. So we've done that. We've changed it to 6. And it also says to make sure the layout switch combo is set to disabled. That's important as well, just so it doesn't change any of the visual layout of the FC6. So just that's down here somewhere. There it is. It's down there. Make sure that's set to disabled. So that's all set. We are ready to go as far as those changes are concerned. So the next thing you want to do is go into FM3 Edit, and you want to go to this. You usually see the grid like this, right? You want to go to FC Controllers. This is where you set up the foot switch part of the FM3. And you want to go to this Edit menu. Sometimes it can be confusing. There's a couple edit menus here. You don't want to go to Switches. You want to go to Layouts. So go up here to Layouts, Edit, and what you want to do is select Import All Layouts. Make sure you don't choose Import One Layout, this one. You want to import all layouts. We're replacing all 9 default foot switch layouts with this new OMG9. So click Import All Layouts. You'll get a little pop-up that says all layouts are going to be overwritten. Yes, that's what we want to do. So hit OK. And then it'll come up with a, your Finder window in Mac or your Explorer window, your folders basically on your computer. And just go to the folder where it has just navigate to the OMG9 folder that you downloaded and unzipped and choose the All Layouts FC layout. And then hit Open. Now I've already done this. It's going to take a little bit to install, maybe a minute or so. It has to overwrite all the foot switches. It takes a little bit of time. So just hit Open. It'll start importing that. And once you're there, you're done. So like I said, I already have it loaded here. And there's a few things about this. When you have just the FM3 by itself, you have 9 layouts. 8 of them are your general layouts, presets, scenes, whatever by default. And then there's a 9th special layout called the master layout menu. So there are 9 total layouts. When you're using just the FM3 by itself, all the layouts are dedicated to those 3 switches. Everything you do there, you can just change layouts, change whatever you want, change any switch, whatever. It makes sense because it's self-contained. When you add an FC controller like the FC6 to the setup, you don't get another set of 9 layouts. I think that's something that's confusing at first. You might think you would, but you don't. The FC6 or the FC12, whatever you plug in, and if you plug in 2, it's the same, 2 FCs additional. All the FCs connected to the FM3 share the same 9 layouts. So this isn't a problem. This is great. And this is why the OMG9 works so well. But just know that you're not getting 2 separate sets of layouts. So if you're in like FM3 mode in your head while you're adjusting this and you're like, oh, but this has the preset switches of the FC6 that I see. Yes, it does. They are the same 9 layouts. They share them. Okay, so that's an important point. So with that, an option you might be using in Edit a lot when you're adjusting these things, well, could be this Show As menu here. So right now we have it showing as in FM3. What this does is it affects what boxes, what switches are sort of grayed out here. So you can kind of focus in on whatever the physical foot switch would give you. So we're looking at it as in FM3 right now. We see 3 switches at a time. If I go to view 2, we see another 3 switches and so on. In the future, we're going to change it to FC6. And honestly, this is where you're going to be doing most of your programming, unless you want to get really advanced and change some things on the FM3 side. I'll show you what that means in a bit. But just be aware of this. Be aware of this option here to change the view of these switches from the FM3 to an FC6. Okay, we're going to stick with FM3 just for now. So what does the OMG9 do? So it's a little bit of a wide setup. It's hard for me to get the camera on everything. So if you look on the left, you see a kind of smaller screen showing both devices here. In short, the FM3 sort of becomes your master layout menu. So with the defaults on the FM3, remember I said you'd be holding the middle switch, going to the master layout menu, and then choosing presets. And then later you would hit the middle switch, hold it, it'll go to the master layout menu on the FM3 itself, and then you can choose scenes. You jump that way. What the OMG9 does, it sort of makes the FM3, like I said, the master layout menu, and you never need to hold that switch to get there. So that saves a lot of time during the gig. You don't have to hold it, go to where you want to go, then hold it again, and so on. They are ready to go on the FM3 itself. So if we look at the close-up of these switches, we can see it says presets, scenes, and effects. So that's what you'd normally see if you held that MLM switch on the default FM3 layout. But now we don't need to do that. We can just click presets, we can click scenes, we can click effects. And what'll happen, so I'm going to change the camera view to the FC. I'm going to hit the FM3 button. So here I'm going to hit presets on the FM3. And you can see the FC6 switches change to all presets. I'm going to hit the scenes switch on the FM3. I'm not going to any master layout menu or anything. I'm just directly hitting that. And now we have all the scenes of this preset. I hit effects, and now we have an effects layout here, right? So that's really cool. There's an additional switch. There are additional hold features here, which I'll show in just a bit. But let's go back to the guide. So we have it all installed, and get rid of all these things. Let's go back to the guide. This shows a synopsis of using the OMG9. And this is what we just did. On the FM3 itself, if you tap the first switch, it goes to the preset mode on the FC6. So the whole point here is nothing on the FM3 changes. It's going to stay and show you preset, scenes, effects. You don't have to go to menus. You don't have to hold anything else to get there. It'll always be there. And while you press whatever you press on the FM3, it'll change the FC6 that's right next to it. It's really, really cool. So if you press the first switch, I should say if you tap the first switch, you get presets. If you tap the second switch, you get scenes. If you tap the third switch, you get effects. There are additional hold features here on the FM3. If you hold the first switch, you get to the tuner. So here's the first switch. If I hold it, the tuner pops up. And then just click, of course, again to get rid of that. If you hold the second switch, you get more scenes. Now, this is a little different than other hold options. The way this works, it uses layout links. I'm not going to get into that now, but the way a layout link works is it launches that layout link when you let go of the switch. So this threw me off at first, but if I tap the second button, it immediately changes to scenes. To get to the second layer of scenes, the more scenes that the guide shows you, you have to hold it, but also let go after the half-second duration that's by default. So let me show you what happens here on the FC6. So I'm going to press to go to the first scene's layout. This is scene 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now it's off camera. You can see it in the tiny screen. I'm going to hold this switch, right? So here I am. I'm holding it. Now I'm still holding it. On a typical hold function, whatever you programmed would happen after that half a second. I'm still holding it and nothing has changed on the FC6. I'm going to let go and then it's going to change. So that's something a little bit different. It's just sort of how this has to work. So just keep that in mind. If you want to get to that more scenes, that second scenes view, you need to hold it and eventually let go. So a little bit different there, something to keep in mind. And third, if we hold the third switch, we're going to get to looper mode. And it's the same thing. You have to hold and eventually let it go at some time. So same exact reason. The layout link works on the switch up, the switch release. So just keep that in mind. If you're going for these hold functions, except for the tuner is a direct function. For the more scenes and looper, you have to hold for at least the half second and then let go, and then it will change the FC to whatever you need it to be. Okay, so that's the FM3. So keep in mind, sorry, there we go. Once again, nothing is going to change on these foot switches. That's the whole point of this OMG9. It was to give you faster switching on the FC6 to preset scenes, effects, and so on. So you don't have to go to the master layout menu, spend time there, keep changing back and forth. It's always ready to go. Presets, boom. I want scenes, boom. Then you select on the FC. I want effects, boom. Select on the FC, go back to presets. Much, much faster if you have these two devices. So back to this, FC6 in presets mode, very straightforward. The FC6 is set to go preset 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in that bank. And as we can see on the guide, to bank up and down, you just hold these switches, switch 1 or switch 3. So switch 3, hold that, and it'll bank up to the next 6 presets. And that's why we had to set this bank size first. If you set the bank size afterwards, these top switches won't know what that is. It'll be set to 3. It's hard to explain, but just set the bank size first, okay? So bank up, bank down, select any of the 6 presets in that bank. The next one is scenes mode, pretty straightforward as well. If I tap the first switch, it goes to scenes, and we have scene 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are no hold functions on this one. Yep, no hold functions on this one. From here, if we want more scenes, like if we want access to scenes 7 and 8, the way it's set up, we do that hold function on the FM3 itself, and you got to hold and then eventually let go. It'll come up. We have scene 7, 8. We have a tap tempo here, and then these are per preset switches. So this is where you can, per preset, change these switches to whatever you want. I happen to have rotary 1 set on this per preset number 1. from something older I did. So that's why you're seeing that there. But if you don't, you would see per preset number 1. Here's per preset number 2, and so on. You can set those up. So this is something you can get to another 3 switches that change per preset if you want. No need to. Okay, so that's that. And then effects mode, again, self-explanatory. I'm going to hit the 3rd switch, and we can see effects that were set up. Now, because I just explained per presets a little bit, you should realize that these are going to be set to a certain function at first. So this is where most people are going to want to change to adapt to their presets and their setups. Now, remember, these are set to specific functions like phaser, chorus, 1, delay, and so on. If you want them to be different things per preset, you'll have to make these per preset switches on your own. That's easy enough to do. I have another video about per preset switches coming out soon. Don't want to get into that too much right now. But for now, it's drive, delay, reverb, phaser, chorus. Now, this one is set to change views. It's more, so more effects. So where scenes, you could have scenes 1 through 6, then hold the 2nd switch and go to more scenes. This one's on this page right here. So if you click this, it changes view. It's just called more, but it's changing view. Now we have compressor, trem, flanger, rotary, and pitch. To go back while here, hit the more back button. It'll go back, and you'll see the original, or the first view, the first page, if you will, of effects available. Looper mode, I'm going to hold the 3rd switch and let go, and we have a basic looper setup here. Record, play, erase, once, reverse, half speed. Those are the main looper functions, and they're all there ready to go. And then there are more details in the guide here. I would read this. There's a few tips and some things in here that explain it a little more deeply. I will say there's a typo here on this line here. This should say FC6 layout 3 effects view 2. So there's a little typo there. Try not to let that get to you. But this is effects view 2, and we just looked at that by tapping that more switch. And you can see that some of them have hold functions, but most don't. When they were creating the OMG9, and again, I think this is really smart, they wanted to simplify everything so you didn't have to hold too many things to get to things. With the FM3 as it is, with only 3 switches, you kind of have to use hold functions to make the most of the 3 switches, and you kind of have to use the master layout menu if you want to get a lot of foot switches, available with just the 3. So the OMG9 helps by reducing the MLM, which I've explained a lot already. You don't need to go there at all. But it also simplifies things because many of the functions here are just you tap it and it's done. So that's the fastest way to change scenes. When a switch has no hold function, it fires as soon as you hit the switch down. So all the scenes here, you boom, immediately go to it. You don't have to hold anything. You don't have to think too much. I want presets. Look at my FM3. Click presets, look at my FC6, choose the preset I want. Very simple and straightforward, so I love this. So that's how to install it and generally how to use it. It works really well if you have these 2 units. Just put them side by side. You can put the FM3 on the left, you can put it on the right, whatever makes the most sense to you. Of course, from here you can add expression pedals or other switches if you want to, just like normal. Plug them into the FC6 and assign it that way. Plug it into the FM3 pedal port and assign it that way. Everything else is the same. Just the key points of the OMG9 are that, hey, thanks for all the likes and stuff on Facebook. I'm sort of talking here, so I haven't looked at it yet, but thank you so much. The key point of the OMG9 is that the FM3 stays on, the foot switches of the FM3 stay the same throughout any of the layout changes. When you change layouts on the FC6, the FM3 stays. That is the key point. So it's always there, always ready to go. Presets, scenes, effects, tuner, whatever. Now from here, of course you can change whatever you want to what works best for your setup. But it's a little more complex than just using the FM3 by itself. Again, because the FC6 and the FM3 share the 9 layouts, you kind of got to know what the layouts are before you start adjusting things. So we're going to look at that in just a sec. But it's really simple. You just have to know what you're doing. So if we go back to FM3 edit here, we're in the FC controllers. The first thing to know is that layout 8 is the FM3 setup. So if you notice, all the views are exactly the same. Preset scenes effects, and so on. This is what makes the OMG9 work. They sort of tricked it this way, and it works great. Because they're all the same, anytime you change anything on the FM3, you might be jumping to different views, but the foot switches there are always going to be the same. So even though the views might be changing, don't worry about it. The functions are the same, and that's what makes this work. I told you earlier that layout links are what really makes the OMG9 work. So let's take a look. Let's click on this first preset, let's click on this first foot switch, and we'll click layout links and see what's going on. So you don't need to know anything about this. I'm just showing it to you so you know it's there. You don't need to adjust anything. It's totally fine. But when you click, what this is saying is this, a layout link, I should start there. A layout link links the foot switch to a layout. That's what it means, layout link. When you click the foot switch, letting go links to some specific layout. So again, you don't need to adjust this. In fact, don't adjust this. I'm just showing it to you. What this says is when I click the first switch here, the FC1 will change to layout 1. Okay? When I click the second switch, it says that the FC1, which is your FC6, the first FC plugged in, will switch to layout 2. And that's for the tap function. For the hold function, it'll also switch to layout 2, but it will go to view 2. That's because of the hold function, the more scenes. And finally, on the third switch, we can see that its layout links, of course, go to layout 3, which is effects. And it also goes to layout 5 for the hold, which happens to be the looper. If you don't understand that, no problem. I just wanted to show it. This is how the OMG9 works. It uses layout links to force the FC6 to change what it's showing you at any given time. And the real commands on the FM3 are just to change views. You're viewing, you're selecting view 1, selecting view 2, selecting view 3. These don't matter. Don't adjust these. Don't go to layout 8 and don't adjust that. I would say, for the most part, that's what makes the OMG9 work, so don't touch this layout. Leave layout 8 alone. This is sort of our new master layout menu that's permanently on the FM3 with this setup. So don't change anything here. It's good to go. Another thing to know is that layout 4, I guess we'll wait. Yeah. Layout 4 is completely blank and is not used by this setup, as well as layout 7. Just the way they made it work, layout 4 and 7 are not used. Because they're blank, sure, you could use them, but because of what layout 8 does with the specific changes, I still just wouldn't adjust anything. I wouldn't use layout 4 and 7. Let's look at the other layouts. So layout 8 is dedicated to the FM3, and I advise against changing that. That means these other layouts are sort of dedicated to the FC6. Because the FC6 is where we're kind of changing things, scenes, presets, effects, this is where I would say it's okay to change. So layout 1 happens to be presets, and at this point we're going to view it as an FC6. So now we'll see exactly what would be on the FC6 if we looked at this layout. A little bit easier. So before we were looking at it as an FM3 with only 3 switches, but now we're looking at the FC6 functions, so let's change it there. So pretty basic. I wouldn't change anything on this presets view unless you don't need this many presets at once. So we have 6 presets at a time, bank up, bank down, as you can see. Select preset in bank 1, 2, 3, or select preset 3 in the bank, select preset 6 in the bank, 4, and so on. So if you wanted to, if you don't need access to 6 presets at a time, you could come here and start adjusting this. Let's say you only need 3 presets at a time, but you want immediate access to scenes. Even the OMG9 layout where you can tap, a bunch of things to get from scenes to presets quickly, even if that's not fast enough, you can go here and put scenes on here. I'm not going to do it just to keep the integrity of the layout for now, But you could come here and change the category to scenes and put scene 1, 2, 3 here. So that's an edit you could do. You're on your preset page. You can go 3 presets at a time, and you could jump to scenes really quickly. If you do that, I might change the bank size back to 3 or however many presets you view at once. If you don't understand that, that's okay. I wouldn't change it, though, if you don't understand that. But if you do, this is a nice place to put your most used items. If you change presets a lot and want to quickly change scenes or tap tempo, put tap tempo here instead of a 6th preset or something. Very easy. Okay, let's look at the next layout. This is scenes, and you would see this on the FC6 again. We have scene 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And let's say, well, again, the approach of the OMG9 is simplicity. There are no hold functions here. I don't have to worry about, oh, what happens if I accidentally hold scene 1? Do I turn on an effect or whatever? So there aren't any hold functions here, so it just goes to the scene as quickly as possible. That's cool, but let's say you really need access to all 8 scenes on this first view. You just don't have time to hold that second switch on the FM3. You know, you need it here. You could do some things. A common one I do all the time is change the scene from select one scene. Just change it to a toggle. So you could do something like this. This is just a suggestion, but you could change it to toggle between 1 and 2. You could change the next switch to toggle between 3 and 4. So give me a sec. Let me set this up. 3 and 4 there. Could change this one as well to toggle. And let's just do 5, 6. I think you get the point here. So now on these switches, there we go. Now on these switches, I've set it so switch 1 goes between 1 and 2. You see it changing there? 3. All right, my mic was muting because there was some audio coming through here. I thought I had that muted. Let me fix that real quick. Okay. So 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. And I just added those. I changed those to toggles right over here. Sorry, when you start changing things, the views change. Right? We changed this to toggle 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6. So now let's say I only need 6 scenes total. I could change these top switches to effects that I always need, or tap and tuner, or whatever I want from this scenes view. Remember that just like with the original factory default Footswitch layouts, those are just suggestions. You can put anything you want anywhere. With the OMG9, again, I would say don't adjust layout 8 because it's ready to go. But any of these other ones that the FC6 is set for, put whatever you want there. Just because this is called scenes, right? That doesn't mean you can only have scenes on here. I could change this, like I said, let's see, to utility tap tempo. And let's say I always turn like a delay on and off. I can go to effect, bypass delay 1. You can do this stuff. Now, again, it's good to understand the original intent of the OMG9 layout, but once you understand it and you see, oh, I'd really like a tuner button here. Well, go ahead and put it once you've adjusted other switches to give you the control that you need. So we can go to here, utility tuner. So now when I go to my scenes layout of the OMG9, I have scene 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's plenty for me. And then now I also have tuner. I also have delay, which I always use. And I also have tap tempo. You know, put the switches wherever you want it. But that's a cool thing that you can adjust. What I see most people wanting to adjust, of course, is this third layout. And this is the effects layout. By default, there's drive, delay, reverb, and so on. So you have 5 effects here. This 6th switch jumps to another view over here. It's grayed out for now, but we have other effects. So let's say we never use a phaser in our setup. None of our presets ever use phaser, but I think someone on the forum said they always use a filter block as a boost. Well, what you would do is go to Layout 3, which is Effects. And again, this layout is used by the FC6. So I would say go ahead and adjust that one. Just don't adjust Layout 8. Anyway, all we need to do is change this from phaser to filter. Super simple. Just choose filter from the list. And now any preset that I use that has a filter block in it, this will be ready to go. You can adjust the other switches to use what you want or just move them. Let's say for me, for some reason, I think some gear I used in the past, they had the delay and reverb, those types of effects on the second row of switches. This was a long time ago, and I sort of got in the habit of that. And I could change it. I could put the reverb and delay on the bottom if it's more important, but just for my own sort of recall when I'm on stage, I like having those types of effects up. So you could just change chorus to delay. Now, I'm not going to do it, but you can just click here, choose delay instead, right? And put delay here and put reverb here, or whatever you're used to. These are just the starting point. This is something, you know, no Footswitch layout works for everybody. I always say that. So adjust what you need here on the effects. Now, on this second view, when you go to more, if I were to click the switch, what it would do is change to the second view. On this second view, I would put effects that you sometimes need access to, and you don't need it like super quick. You have time to hit that more button and jump over here. So yeah, rotary, pitch. Oh, but I use pitch all the time. Okay, well, go back here, change this to pitch, and I rarely use delay. Okay, go back here and change this to delay instead, right? So adjust what you need to adjust, but do it on the first 3 layouts for the most part. Layout 4, again, is blank. I'm not sure there's a good way to use that with the way the FM3 only has 3 switches to get around, so I wouldn't use this unless you can figure out a clever way to get there. Layout 5 happens to be the looper, and I personally, this is how I set up my looper. I don't use reverse and I don't use half speed, so I would take those out and put something I actually use. I do use record, and I never put a hold function on it just so it's the quickest. I always use play, of course, same thing. I don't put a hold function. I always use erase and once, and I personally put them on the same switch, so we can do that. What do I put? I put once on the tap function typically. I'm just going to copy and paste over to the hold function, and on the hold function is where I put erase or undo. So when I'm looping, I hit record, I hit play to start the loop, of course. Then I hit once before the end of the loop while I'm singing, and when it reaches the end of the loop, it stops. It plays it once or one more time, or it finishes the current loop, right? And it plays. So then I don't have to also change to the chorus of the song and hit a new chord and hit the switch at the same time while singing the words or whatever. It's just kind of a peace of mind. I really like the once control here. And because you're not doing it on a specific time, I don't need it to launch when I hit the bottom, when the switch hits the bottom on the downstroke of the switch. So I can hit it and let go. It's not timing critical. But if I'm doing overdubs or if I mess up on a loop, I can hold this switch and it'll erase, which is kind of neat. And if you undo, erase is also undo. If you undo an overdub on the loop, if you hold it again, it'll redo it. So sometimes I'll play the head of the song, like whatever the riff is, and I'll loop it as an overdub. I'll undo it while I play the verse, and when the chorus comes back in, I'll redo it, and it pops back in. Now, sometimes you might say, oh, I want the timing to be perfect on that. For my use of it, I don't care. I can hold the switch and it'll pop in at some point. It doesn't really matter for the way I gig. So this works for me. Anyway, I have the looper set up how I usually use it with just these 3 switches. And now all 3 of these in this view, I can change to whatever I want. A cool thing to put on your looper page is a couple of scene changes. Something that's really popular to do is record a rhythm section on a clean sound, of course. Record a loop clean, start the loop, let it play back, and when you're done, you change to a lead tone. Now, on my setup, it happens to be scenes 1 and 2. Scene 1 is my clean rhythm, and scene 2 is my clean lead. So I can set this to scene toggle, scene toggle 1 and 2. So for my setup, this makes sense. Record the loop, play it on the clean channel, and I'm using some other preset, so don't worry about the words here. But record it on scene 1, and then without even having to go over to FM3, leave the looper, go to scenes, change scenes. Then when I'm done playing the lead with the lead sound, go to looper, or change the scene, go to see if it's even confusing right now. Putting a couple of scenes or preset changes, whatever you do, in the looper area can really speed up this process, especially for solo or duo players, which is what I do a lot. So having the scene function right there makes it much, much faster. I don't even know what to put here. This is a lot of switches. I'm used to the 3 switches now only on the FM3. So let's say we want to put even more scenes right here in this looper. We're going to copy that switch, paste it over here. I never use reverse, so just get rid of that. And let's say we use, I always use 3 and 6 next in my solo or duo gigs. So I've set this switch to be, you know, scene 1 and 2, scene 3 and 6, like I always do. And let's just make this one into the tuner because I tune a lot. Oh, let's do it a double purpose. We can do tap and tuner, which is very popular. Oops, wrong one. Tap tempo, yep, sorry about that. And then we'll copy that and paste it to the hold function very quick. And, well, my computer's running slow, so not that quick. And we go to tuner. So this is actually a really cool setup. I would honestly stay parked in this layout for most of my solo gigs. Record play once on the bottom row, easy to get into looping. And then on the top row, I have scenes 1 and 2, which I use all the time. 90% of the time I'm scene 1 or 2. And then if I want a little more crunch in my preset, scene 3 is a little like crunch sound, and scene 6 is like a high gain lead with not a lot of treble, so it fits in real nice in like acoustic gigs. And tap and tempo. And actually, I just realized, honestly, this is pretty much my FM3 setup, just these 2 views, if you will, of switches. I have a looper on one side, and I have my scene control on the other, and I'm good to go. So this is another idea of editing the OMG9 to do something more than it was originally designed to do. They left layout 6 as per preset. There's no real way to get to it in the original OMG9 setup. So they've just left this here. If you want this to be per preset items, they're here and you can adjust it and go to this layout. Now, one thing I want to mention, and this is with the OMG9 or anything else, you can always change layouts on the FM3 itself with the knobs itself. So if it makes sense to leave that sort of preset scene effect thing of the OMG9, you don't need a switch necessarily to do it. You can bend down and change the layout with the knob E. But like I said, for the OMG9, it makes most sense to stay on layout 8, of course, don't adjust it, and do all of the layout changes on the FC6 itself. So that's pretty much it. It's really easy to install. Just follow the directions that come with the download. And it's nice to have, let's get back to what it says. It's nice to have these sort of master layout menu functions always available here. I think that was the concept. Instead of jumping to the master layout menu, in and out, all gig, use the FM3 sort of as a permanent master layout menu. It'll change what the FC6 displays at any given time, and then you use those functions there quickly. So like I said, here's presets. If I click that, I have all 6 presets. We didn't adjust that view. If we go to scenes, we have what I adjusted here. I have toggles because I adjusted that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I put some effects and some utility stuff. We can go to effects. We can change this to whatever we want on this page, whatever makes sense for our presets, whatever you want, or make these per preset switches and then change them per preset. Really easy to do. And the big one we did is change the looper layout to what I like. So of course, do whatever you want, but I like record and play. We have once and erase on the hold function of that. And then right here, I have 4 scenes, 1, 2, 3, 6 for my setup, tap and tuner on the looper layout. And I can just stay there, loop, change sounds all I want during the gig without even having to step on the FM3. But if I need to, I can hit presets, go back, change the next preset for the next song or whatever it is. So the OMG9 is great. Very, very genius here. All the people that helped develop this and put it together, Excellent job. And it makes things easier with the FM3 and FC6. You can change faster, react to things better on the fly at the gig, and be able to jump to all the presets, scenes, effects, and everything else that you want. So check it out and load up the OMG9, follow the guide, and you'll be all set. Cool. See you in the next one. Alrighty. So if you're watching right now, there's just a few of you. If you have any questions on the OMG9, I have a few minutes. I'll hang out for just a little bit. But yeah, I just wanted to record that to help out someone who's having trouble with the OMG9, and he hasn't gotten back to me after I said I'd help him. So I was all set up, ready to go. I said I might as well stream. It doesn't look like he's popping back to the forum right now. But yeah, if you're watching, if you have any questions, want to ask real quick about the OMG9 setup or anything else, real quick on the FM3, I'll be here for a few minutes. I don't have my guitar right now, so it's just me talking. But yeah, let me know in chat. Take a quick break. See if there's any questions. I will probably download and edit that video to a sort of excerpt that I've been doing from my live streams. Probably do that later tomorrow or the next day. But I just wanted to get that down so I could get that video out. For where I gig, I typically try to take the least amount of gear as possible. So I generally these days show up with just the FM3 and one of these foot switches used as a stand-in switch, which will just change a couple of views on the FM3 itself, and that gets me through most, if not all, of my gigs. I will change between the looper and sort of scenes and effects on two views of the same layout. So pretty minimal. I use an expression pedal for volume, and that's it. On bigger gigs where I don't know the material, or I'm a stand-in guy or something like that, I might take the FC6 and do the OMG9, or I might just take the FC12, the bigger one. Depends on the gig, how many switches I think I need, and just use that at the front of the stage with my expression pedal plugged into that, and keep the FM3 back at the back of the stage, away from the beer or whatever, that sort of thing. If it makes sense, closer to the mixer, you can run shorter XLR cables, or depending on the setup, sometimes they put you all the way across the other end of the stage, away from the mixer, and they can't plug you in, so I have to move the FM or the axe or whatever closer. That's definitely happened in the past. I mean, I show up with 25-foot cables, and if they park one guy 50 feet away from the mixer, I feel they should be responsible for getting you at least halfway there, but a lot of times they don't. Or like, I've been in situations, we set up for a wedding once where they had no idea what they were doing. It started raining, so we had to change locations, and I said, well, can you put us right by the mixer where it's not wet? They put that there because it wouldn't get wet, and they're like, no, we want you on the opposite side of the tent. It's also not wet there because for whatever reason. And I said, okay, well, that's about 100 feet away. And they said, yeah, just plug in. I was like, well, I didn't bring 100 feet of cable times 4, 2 guitars and 2 microphones. And they're like, you didn't? I said, no, I didn't. That's not typical. That was not on the writer. That was not on your requirement list. The musician typically sets up by the mixer. And they just had no idea what I was talking about. So fortunately, I had my own mixer with me, the one I always take. It's the QSC Touch Mix. It's like a touch mixer with touch interface, and I submixed us there, had my iPad so we could control it, and I sent one line out. We put all our XLRs, our extra XLRs together to get to the mixer 100 feet away, and instead of sending him 400 feet of cable, like hello, I sent him 100 feet of cable with our main output straight to him, and I could mix while we played. So stuff like that I've learned along the way. If you're gigging and you want to be professional and be prepared for any situation, take your own mixer if you can. I think the QSC Touch Mix is an excellent option if you're okay with digital mixers, if it makes sense to you. But any mixer you can take, I just like it because it's so thin. It actually fits in my gig bag with the FM. There's nothing extra to take. I just have to power it, plug all our inputs in, 3 feet away and not 100 feet each. And then I send the submix to the DJ, who is our sound guy, of course. And he just turned up the fader. I EQ'd it from there. I graphic EQ'd our mains. I adjusted EQ on our channels and all of that. It was a nightmare. And they just had no idea what they were asking us. Oh, please suddenly have 400 feet of XLR cables in addition to whatever else you need. That's just unrealistic. Anyway, if you just joined, I just went through the setup of the OMG9. So this video will be available as it was live for a little bit. I'm going to take it down at some point and re-edit it so it's a little easier to watch. Take out any things I said wrong or stuff like that. But yeah, right now I'm hanging out for just a bit. If you have any questions on the FM3 or the FC6 setup, since I have it right here, or the OMG9 specifically, let me know. I'll hang out for just a few more minutes. But if not, have a great night or morning or afternoon, wherever you are watching. Totally appreciate it. Alrighty, so, have you had any problems overloading the power of the FM3? So I guess you mean CPU. Personally, I haven't had any problems. I've been working with fractal gear for over 10 years, so I kind of know what to expect. And I sort of have a realistic expectation of what every gear can do. If you're new to the axe, and I probably did this when I got my first Ultra, over 10 years ago, yeah, it's natural to say, hey, there's, 12 times 4 block spaces. I want to fill everything up. I want to throw everything into the preset. But that's just not possible for any gear. You can't unlimitedly add blocks, So I don't think there's a problem with CPU on the FM3. If you compare it to the Axe FX3, of course, there are more spaces and more CPU. I mean, the grid itself is bigger. This is the Axe FX3 edit software. So there's more grid spaces, there's more CPU, you can add more blocks. So yes, if you approach the FM3 knowing that it has less CPU, hopefully that'll deter you from feeling, that it's not adequate or not enough. But let me on here look at my... So we're looking at the FM3 now. This is my preset, which does everything I want. I have drive block, amp and cab, pitch block for my detune sound, tremolo, EQ for leads and things like that, a volume pedal, delay with 4 channels, multi-delay filter. There's a lot of stuff in here. I have a second row for my acoustic guitar sound that comes out of my main guitar. This is a lot, and we're close to the limit. It's around 80%, which that's sort of the upper limit. This is my same preset on the Axe FX3, and for the most part, it's literally the same except for some extra blocks that I rarely use. I added plex delay with a shimmer just because I could. I had the extra room. I put a tremolo after it to make it sound like have an effect. I added a reverb in addition to the multi-delay, which is like a long delay sound anyway, just because I could. I wanted to try that, but I rarely use those. So for me, I got everything I needed, including a looper, in the FM3, under the sort of CPU limit. That's around 80, 82%. That's when it starts kind of slowing down because the other percentages need to actually run the thing and process the audio. That's pretty important. So my answer is no. If you want 4 delay blocks and 2 additional multi-delay blocks and 2 amp blocks at a time and 4 cabs times 2 in blocks, yeah, then you're going to want the Axe FX3. But the same with the AX8 before. The FM3 was designed to be a portable, smaller unit that you can quickly take to the gig, drop in your same guitar bag sometimes, it's so small, and get to the gig and have the fundamental tones with a bunch of great effects along with it. If you know you're the type that just wants to load it on as much as you can, then maybe the Axe FX3 is for you. But then you need to bring the rack with the Axe in it. You need to bring some sort of floor controller, usually in a separate case, along with your guitars and speakers and things like that. So it's sort of a trade-off situation with any gear. The smaller it gets, the more limited it gets, usually. The bigger it gets, the more options you have, but then you have to carry it. So it's totally up to you. But I haven't felt limited. Many people haven't felt limited unless you use a lot of reverb, a lot of delays. You need 2 amps and 2 cabs for whatever you're doing. Then the Axe FX3 is a better choice for that. But the sound of the FM3 is identical to the Axe 3, and it's getting better and better as they do the updates. Do I have a recommendation for a rack power amp? I play direct, so I don't really use power amps. I don't use regular guitar cabs. I don't use PA power amps personally to go to passive speakers, so I don't have the best recommendations. I would check the forum for that. A lot of people use the Matrix stuff. There's a 2-rack unit. There's a 1-rack unit power amp. I've read different things about those, so I'm not the best to ask for that, but there are a lot of options. If you're powering a real guitar cab, some people swear by using a tube power amp like the Mesa 290 or whatever it's called. Things like that. Fryette has some, and it depends what you're trying to accomplish. Other people swear, even if you're using a real guitar cab, to use either a hybrid amp like Matrix uses them, or Matrix makes them. They are meant to power real guitar cabs, but they're made for modelers, so that's another way to go. And I've heard people have great success using sort of your classic power amp for a PA system, like your QSCs or Crown amps, things like that. Those go straight to the guitar cab, and those work well too. So I think anything can work as long as the power ratings and ohms all work out, of course. But it really just depends on what you want to accomplish. Personally, I use powered speakers, like the QSC K10. They have a new CP line, CP8, CP12. Yamaha makes the DXRs. There's a whole bunch of them. JBL, you name it. They have powered speakers. I use them because they're very simple to operate. You plug them into power, you turn on the switch, and you send an XLR or quarter-inch cable from the FM3 straight in. And that is a full range solution. It's not a guitar cab. It won't sound like a guitar cab exactly, but it will sound like a great recorded guitar tone. And that's what my audience is hearing, so I want to hear the same thing. I want to know exactly what they're hearing. So that's why I use full range powered speakers. You might have heard of something called FRFR, which means full range and flat response. A lot of people use that term very loosely, referring to all speakers that are full range, but that's not true. There are a few speakers out there that are truly full range and flat response. The RCF brand NX12 SMA, I happen to have one of those. They're great, a little expensive, but they're really great, super flat. The Atomic CLR, of course, I'm sure everyone's heard of that one. Also very, very flat. The thing about flat speakers is that they sound flat. So I know so many people who bought a CLR and started using it, and it's like, wow, my tone just does not have any oomph to it. There's no low end, there's no high end, that sort of thing. But that's the point. You need to EQ in what you want on a flat speaker. Do you turn off the cab IRs when playing into the FRFR? Absolutely not. No. The IR is made for full range speakers and FRFR speakers. That's the whole point. The cab IR simulates a real guitar cabinet. Now, a full range speaker has a woofer and a tweeter, or some sort of high range dispersion device in it. It's a two-way. A guitar cabinet, let's just talk about a 112 guitar cabinet, has one speaker. It's just a woofer. So it has mid-range and nothing much above that because there's no tweeter. It has low range, but it's made to be sort of mid-rangey for a guitar. A cabinet IR takes an impulse response. Well, it is an impulse response. It takes a recording, if you will, of that real cab and puts it into the system so you can put it over a full range speaker. So with a full range speaker, you leave the IRs on always, always, always. That is the point. That's the design. All of the modeling gear works that way. Fractal, Line 6, Kemper, you name it. You need an IR if you're going to a full range system like a PA speaker, studio monitors, headphones, anything full range. Anything you'd listen to like your iPod on. You want the IRs on. If you're going to a real guitar cabinet, generally speaking, you turn off the IRs because you would send a recording of a cab, so to speak, into a real cab, and that just usually doesn't sound good. Now, there are some people who say they have success running the cabinet IR in the cab block, in the FM3 or Axe effects, and going to a real guitar cabinet. It's very few. I don't think many people do that, but I have read and heard someone who recorded that and it sounded great. Whatever they did, it sounds good. It's for their setup. So there's no rules. There's always suggestions, I like to say. But generally speaking, IRs for full range speakers, no IRs for guitar cabinets specifically. Tends to hold true for most setups. There are always exceptions with everything, of course. I'll give you an exception for an IR. Not using an IR on a full range speaker. Clean tones. You can get away with clean tones with no IR. Because there's no distortion and breakup, the cabinet doesn't need to be there to sort of calm those down. If you've ever had a full range speaker and turned off the IR, it just sounds so brittle immediately. There's no low end. It's just like very fuzzy and fizzy. The guitar cabinet's a big part of the sound, so you want that on. But with a clean tone, since there's no real distortion going on, because it's clean, and I mean actually clean, you can get away without an IR sometimes, and it kind of gives sort of a, this sounds negative, but sometimes a plasticky sound, a plinky sound sometimes without the IR. It's not like rounding off the highs and lows. And sometimes you want that. Maybe a Strat sound, like that really plinky 80s sound, might sound good on a clean tone without a cab block. So experiment. Definitely experiment. But those general rules tend to hold up 90 or more % of the time. That sort of thing. All right. Yeah, no problem. So yeah, unless there's any questions, I'll hang out for like a minute more if you're taking time typing, or just let me know you have something and I'll wait. But probably going to end stream here. If you have any questions, ask right now before I go, but just wanted to let you know. So again, a review. This stream was originally on the OMG9 setup for the FM3. I went through installing it, adjusting things later once you get used to it, how to use it out of the box, how to adjust things, like I said, how to assign things, changing pages and whatever. Layouts, I should say. How to change layouts. But yeah, if you have any other questions right now, let me know. And we'll go for it on the FM3 or the Axe effects or whatever. All right, unless you're typing right now, hit enter so I can see someone has a question. But if no further questions, I'm going to end stream here. Thanks so much for watching. Oh yeah, no problem on the forums. I try to help. I've been taking a little bit of a break. Sometimes I get bored of my break and I go answer a few threads here and there. But I have been taking a break. I have to focus on some other things right now. But yeah, I'll be back in a bit in full force and try to help out where I can. But yeah, no problem. So thanks again for watching. Going to end stream here, and I'll see you on the next one. See ya.